Good evening and welcome to the MSAD 60 School Board meeting. It's February 2nd, 2023. And let's begin by saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Doesn't look like we have any public input tonight, but I'll read the statement anyways.
Okay, someone shows up.
Alva's going to read the statement.
The first public input session is a 21-minute session with each person having no longer than 3 minutes in which to make a statement. But a second public input session may be held at the end of the meeting if allowed by the board chair. The speaker will give his or her name, address, and reason for speaking. Public input is designated for district residents, but the board chair may grant non-residents the opportunity to address the board. Statements concerning subject matter that falls under the law regarding executive sessions, for example, matters involving personnel, cannot be made during public input. We as a community pledge to treat each other as we wish to be treated. We pledge to seek understanding when there may be disagreement. Regardless of outcomes or opinions, we pledge to move forward with respect.
Thank you, Alva. So let's move on to the minutes of January 19th. Does anyone have any changes or corrections that they'd like to make?
I just corrected a date. I had a 2022 instead of a 2023. Can I just fix that one? With Miss Hagemuth and Ketchup, and it didn't really exist.
I did not look at this one with the usual
Okay, thank you.
eyes, so. But you have been doing very well.
Work hard. Behave myself.
So who else? Is that you?
That's me.
That's yours. Victoria, did you have any changes that you wanted us to take note of?
I think that I just had a question about the part where it says, I think it's public input. I can't bring up the document right now, but earlier I had read it and it said, hold on. Oh, no, I was just questioning it, but it looks like it is under the, I thought I had seen something that I did not see. Okay, we're all set. I think I'm good.
Okay, thank you. People want a couple more minutes to take a look?
I did want to clarify, I moved the PTA report to public input because as a board member, like you're representing the PTO as a public person instead of the board. So I moved that.
I think that's what I had seen.
Yeah, I moved it.
Okay.
Is that, because are we technically allowed to?
I think providing public input about the PTOs is fine.
Okay.
But that's like if we were to have the boosters in or something else, they would come under public input. Sorry.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes of year one correction.
A second.
All those in favor?
I'm abstaining because I wasn't here.
Okay. Motion passes. Our next item on the agenda is the Maine Youth Integrated Health Survey. And Erin Dixon is going to be presenting.
I want Echo to go next.
Sue's help also. Sorry. Yeah.
I'm here to promote and support.
Yes. Thanks for having me. I appreciate your, I just want to say thank you for doing what you do because it was kind of cold and dark when I left my house. Oh my gosh, they do this all the time. It's worked twice for me.
I won't stare at him. So what can Victoria see? We can move Yeah.
the screen.
What do you see, Victoria? Just the board itself?
I see the board, but I don't see a thing
You don't
otherwise.
see the slides.
All right, we'll move you. Well,
Do these get mailed or emailed?
you know what? I don't think so, but I'll do it right now.
Come after?
Yeah. Well, I can do it right now. Is it it's the one you shared with me already, right?
Yes. And the library is not. Okay.
It will come.
It will come. Okay. Well, I'm gonna just get started a little bit, an intro sort of. The Maine Integrated Youth Health Survey for 2021 was released last fall, and Sue and I attended a meeting with the Choose to Be Healthy Coalition out of York Hospital. And it was at that meeting that they presented sort of countywide data, and they gave us our nice binder that has our Noble local data. And we just thought during that meeting, our school board should really hear about this. They would really be interested or curious about this, just to kind of get a sense of what's happening with our students. So,
It's not coming?
yep.
There it goes. Yay. Victoria, I'm going to be sharing this with you in a second. So
Okay, thank you.
adding everybody while I'm thinking.
Could I just ask that they speak a little bit louder? It's a little hard to hear right now.
Yell it out, Erin.
Thank you.
Yell it out.
All right. So the Maine Integrated Youth Health Survey. First, we're going to give you just a little bit of background about the survey and how the data is looked at, and then kind of dive into just a snapshot of a few of the key areas that we thought you might be curious about. We have the whole binder here that has all of the information and all the topics, and we can also share that with you electronically if that's something you're interested in. But this survey is sponsored by the Maine Department of Education, the DHS, CDC. It's been around for a long time, since 2009, and Noble has consistently participated in this survey. Typically administered January or February every 2 years. For 2021, we had to delay to October. So because of the pandemic, we weren't able to do it during that time. So that makes our latest data a little bit different. Prior to 2009, we just looked at drug and alcohol use, but now it captures a lot of the risk behaviors and protective factors that students are faced with. So it's a lot more comprehensive, and it gives us a lot more information about where our students are at. We have a very rigorous protocol to follow as participants in the MIAS, and we take it very seriously. Students participate voluntarily, and it's an anonymous survey. We send out a letter to parents at least 6 weeks or 6 weeks prior, or not within 2 weeks, in very
Very detailed.
fine detail, so that they are given the opportunity to call in and let us know if they don't want their child to participate, and we send that list out to make sure if those students are in their roster that they are not to take the survey. Students can also opt out on the day of. If they kind of start reading through it and they don't really want to share that personal information, they are given the opportunity to just end the survey and to not participate. Teachers get their training, and the reporting thresholds are such that if there's just a tiny fraction of students, we try to maintain confidentiality by they don't share out that information. And what you'll see for our 7th grade in particular is that, some of the areas we didn't have enough data to even share that out. So for 2021, this was our participation rates. And so you'll see how many were enrolled, how many participated in our percentage. And this was fairly consistent with what we've seen over the years. Can you hear me okay? Am I talking loud enough?
Victoria can hear you. Yep, good.
When they read out the report, this is just an example I wanted to share to give you an idea. So when they give us the report like this, you have the question and then how they answered, the percentage compared to previous year for school, compared to Maine and Maine's previous year. These 3 columns on the right will be where they kind of highlight areas that we should be looking at. And it explains that the H means significantly higher than the state for 2021. So for this one, the question was, have you ever been bullied on school property? So that's looking at your whole history with school, and the percentage that said yes, compared to the state of Maine, they're calculating that as a significance in data so that we don't have to do that kind of calculation ourselves. One thing you'll notice is that 8th grade 2019 does not have data. And unfortunately, the state lost our set of 8th grade data for 2019. So we have a little gap in our data, and I don't know what happened. I coordinated the survey that year, and all of the other data came back. I packaged it together, dropped it out together. So it was frustrating for sure. But they just couldn't find it. So I don't know what.
Too bad, so sad is what they.
That's so sad.
No.
The good news about bullying is, and this is just to highlight where they say low compared to the school's previous data or the school compared to the current state data. During the past 12 months, have you ever been bullied at school? The percentage of students that said yes was 13% for us, which was a significant drop from our previous survey. And it's also under electronic bullying, we were significantly lower than the state. So this just gives you kind of an idea of what the report looks like, kind of look at. When I look through this, I kind of look for those areas where they're highlighting the significance in the data just to see where we might be concerned, or maybe we can celebrate some progress. So just to dive in, so we have picked a couple topics to share. And as I looked at this afternoon, I realized like we have a lot of information here. I think it might be great if I can just kind of go through it. If you think of something that you want to talk further about, then maybe at the end we can go back and ask those questions. I just want to kind of move right through and then we can kind of chat. Does that sound okay? I mean, obviously you can ask a question. I don't want to keep you here all night. I love this stuff. I get all excited, but I can understand it. You may not. Okay, so for this one, we're looking at 7th, 8th, and 9th through 12th grade. And the gray is in 2019, maroon 2021, and then the blue is comparing to the state of Maine. So the question is asked, do you feel safe at school? And those are the percentage of students that answered strongly agree or agree. I've put asterisks where we were kind of flagged as a significantly higher or lower than the state. And in this case, being lower is not a good thing. So our 8th graders have reported 71% feeling that they were safe at school, which means I can't do the math. But anyway,
It's not a positive for us.
what I decided to do is take a look at like historically, like further back, is this like a big jump or is this something that is new for 8th grade? And so 2015, 2017, and 21, you can see we're actually increasing the number of students that feel safe at school, even though we're flagged as being significantly lower than the state. So making a little progress, but if anybody remembers the fall of 2021, it was a kind of a difficult time here at Noble. And so I think there were a lot of people that were having some scary feelings.
And the thing to consider about this is that our 8th graders are at the high school.
Yes.
And the change for them from, if you looked at the 7th grade data, which was pretty strongly, yep, I feel safe at school. The 8th graders are coming in and they're at a very different place in this building than in other, than where they left. And so I think there's a psychological piece to this as well, that they don't feel as comfortable in this building as they had felt in the middle school. So those are things that we need to take into consideration as we think about the future, and making sure that our 8th graders are feeling integrated and part of the school. They've been originally in the very early iterations of them coming here. It was very clear from community and parents that they wanted them very separate. I'm not sure that that's actually been a benefit to them. So we're really looking at that. Yeah.
As I mentioned before, though, our bullying for the high school level has actually made some great gains. And, so we're seeing those numbers go down.
In line, interestingly, in line with the state, though, the state's dropping a little bit too, so.
Oops. The next section, we're talking about depression, suicide. A few questions around that. This is for 7th grade students who ever seriously thought about killing themselves. And this is showing, actually in 2013, we were significantly higher than the state in that area. So we've reduced our numbers a little bit, but the state is going up. But at this point, they're not saying we're significantly higher, but thinking of any 7th grader who is seriously considering killing themselves is always very sad. For 8th grade, this is seriously considered attempting suicide in the past 12 months. And that was obviously during our hybrid year. So that was, we actually stayed strong at our 24%, which is, if you think about it, 1 in 4 kids, but
Yeah.
the state's gone up. This is an area, I'll let you read that. Again, the asterisk is showing that we're significantly higher than the state for our 8th graders. At high school level, we are able to look from 2009 to 2020. See the trend of students who seriously considered attempting suicide in the last 12 months. They added a couple of COVID questions. On the left, schoolwork was more difficult, and we were just right in line with the state at 66%. And mental health was not good most of the time or always. And we were at 46% of students felt that their mental health was not good most of the time or always. Drug and alcohol use. This is showing our 30-day use, which is they ask the question, how many times did you use these substances in the last 30 days? And so the percentages are showing students who answered at least 1 time in the last 30 days. And it kind of just shows our more frequent or current users. And I think what you might notice is that we've actually really been able to tackle some of these substances and lowered our rates here at Noble. And it's also a trend in the state. We look closer at our alcohol use at Noble. And so for the students that answered that they did try more than a few sips of alcohol in the past 30 days, this is the percentage of those students. So for us, it was 17% of our students answered that 30-day use. So of that 17%, this is 41% participated in what they would call binge drinking, which is 5 or more drinks in a row within a few hours. So this isn't saying 41% of kids are using alcohol. I just want to make that clear because that is kind of a confusing thing that happens sometimes. But so while our use is decreasing, students are participating in more risky behavior with binge drinking.
We were talking about, Erin and I were talking about that in terms of coming out of the pandemic and the actual acceptability of drinking, the fact that you could actually order alcohol into your home now, as opposed to like that whole barrier that you had to go get it, right?
Yeah.
So there's a whole host of sort of societal issues that go with this as well. I mean, and as we talked about in our strategic planning stuff on Saturday, the mental health piece that we would just pass through, it's huge. And we're really having to really try to figure out different avenues to address the concerns that we're seeing with our students and finding the resources to support them in school settings, but outside as well. So concerning, it's concerning.
So one of the contributing factors to drinking would be access to alcohol. And so we're finding that more than half of our students said it would be sort of, or very easy to get alcohol if they wanted to. Our seventh grade, I mean, you'll notice some gaps. I mean, that the top is 6%. So this is, I mean, our numbers are very low as far as use at the seventh grade, which is great to hear. But a couple of things that I did find significant when we looked at our high school data is that kids were very young when they first tried substances. Or the kids that are at this high school level that are currently using started at a very young age or tried at a very young age. So this is for alcohol. 34% were 13 years or younger than 13 years old. And that's actually flagged as significantly higher than the state. And again, that's not 34% of
All kids,
34% of the
Students who said they did it, yeah.
So, and then for seventh graders,
Remember, this is the 6% of the seventh graders.
so no, there was 13% of seventh graders
Yeah.
had more,
Oh.
than a few sips of alcohol.
Yeah.
And so half of them were younger than 11 years old when they first tried alcohol. So we're talking about like our fourth graders, you know, and
Yeah.
so it's just kind of, a little eye-opening, especially seeing that we're significantly higher than the state of Maine.
Do you think that kids might have said they'd had a few sips of alcohol if they had a little wine at Christmas dinner with their family?
Well, I think the way the question is phrased is, have you had more than a few sips of alcohol?
Okay.
So, you know,
The survey itself does a lot of questioning in multiple ways
Mhm.
to get accurate data.
Okay.
Because there's no question that they have to ferret out some of
Yeah.
those very same
Yeah.
situations. But yeah, they've been doing it a long time. So
Scary numbers.
yes.
so e-cigarettes and vaping, 2021 was the first time we had school level data for that. And so on the left, you'll see 2019, our high school students in Maine, middle school students at the state level, we had 1 and 2 or 45% who had ever used vape products, and 1 in 6 middle schoolers. And we've actually seen those numbers go down. So for our 2021 data, it's 1 in 3 now at 32%, for the whole state of Maine, and Noble is at 37%. This is depressing for me. I started my job 25 years ago in tobacco prevention. And as you see, we're down to, these are higher than our tobacco rates 25 years ago. And so it's good that it's decreasing, but it's depressing for me. Our tobacco rates, or our cigarette rates are at 4% now, and
And the vaping is like, yeah.
so anyway, but at the middle school, we're really consistent with what's happening with the county and state. So. And this is the 30-day use, which is again looking at current users. On the left is the trend. It was a trending up from 2015. We saw a huge jump in 2019, and we have been able to level that out a little bit and start working on decreasing that. I think there's been a lot of awareness around vaping. I think that parents have kind of like, oh, what is this happening? You know, I think there's been a lot of effort to try to get awareness out there about it. So I think that might be working a little bit, but I know that it's something that our administrators
Battle,
are
daily battle.
quite a bit.
Yeah.
So. And the last thing I wanted to talk about was assets, because these are some things that, you know, research is telling us with some of these things in place, we can help our students be successful and lower their risky behaviors. You're maybe familiar with building assets, reducing risks. So our survey is kind of around that model. And so looking at some of these areas of things that are in place and how students are feeling, and if they're feeling connected to their community and adults, and having boundaries and guidelines. So I'll just like you kind of take that in for a second.
Again, we want those numbers to be higher,
Yeah.
right? You know, we're happy that we have at school, 77% of students feel that they have a teacher that supports them. That's awesome. But if you look into the upper numbers, they're like, we need more kids to understand and feel that engagement, that adult support. So,
So that 37% number there, is that their colleagues or is that,
This is students,
Adults.
people at school care about students and engage with them.
so this is adults engaging with students,
I
not,
believe so, yes.
okay.
That's a good question, though.
so it's interesting because 77% of students feel at least one teacher supports them.
Right.
But when only 37% feel that people at school care about others and engage with them.
Mm.
So it's interesting.
That's very interesting.
Yeah,
Uh,
not recognizing, maybe.
in your community, you feel like you matter to people? This is students who answered strongly agree or agree. And in 2019, we actually were significantly low. So we've been able to at least not have that data point of significance. But
But the state fell too. So it's like,
yeah,
we went up a little, but the state came down. So, yeah.
there's that.
Yeah.
So that's a snapshot. Did you have anything you wanted to elaborate on or more information? I actually meant to, I have a little handout here that this is just a little bit more information. This is a handout that the Choose to Be Healthy Coalition put together for us. So I thought I'd share this because it kind of gives a little bit more detail. Some further questions that maybe I didn't cover.
Victoria, we'll send you a copy.
Thank you.
Is this information available to the community at large?
So Audra actually gets the password for the data. And I think you share with people that,
Need it
Yeah.
on an as-needed basis.
So it's not put out there publicly, drilled down. I think there's some generalization that they pulled together in a report somewhere, but we haven't necessarily seen that, but
I mean, I don't think it's I think we could take pieces and put it out in the community if we chose to do that. I mean, I don't know that people, I don't think it's published.
I was just curious.
Yeah, and I do have students approach me or ask me for information when they're doing projects. I had some, if they're doing a project on suicide or any kind of topic that's covered in this, and so that's helpful for them to use for that.
Well, this is being recorded and it's going to go
Right.
on BCTV, right?
Mhm.
So
Echo, not to put you on the spot, but as a student, what does your gut say about what you just saw?
I mean, it all adds up.
Yeah.
I'm curious as to what the results from this past that we just did.
they're taking it right this week, or you just finished it, right? Yeah. So,
Sophomores took it today, 7th grade will take it on Monday, and so we're kind of doing the 2023. This time they're doing it online, which is the first time we'll be doing that. So I don't know how that.
your volume,
Oh.
up the volume.
So this time around, it was the first time, and it went very smoothly for me because I used to have to lug like 7 boxes of paper surveys and put them in the mailboxes, and then they'd have to turn. Yeah. So it was one box, and the teachers just gave them codes. And you said that there was one little glitch, but I didn't really today. I didn't hear from anybody, so I was like, "Yay!" So
I also know that a lot of, or at least people lie,
Oh, yeah.
just click random like answers that they think would like reflect the worst.
Mm.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hear that all the time. And sometimes when I work with our RISE team and I say, okay, this is our data, and they're like, I don't believe it. I think people don't take it seriously. And so that is kind of challenging to hear, but like Sue said, they've been doing this for a really long time. And if you can kind of see they take, they have strategies for beating out some of those, kind of.
And it's good for trends. You're never gonna get it beaten down to the, to the exact science of it, but at least for trends, the reality of it is that it doesn't speak differently, do you think, than what you would, with what you see? I mean, you think about the way people are feeling in terms of mental health and all those, it kind of reflects what I would expect. So yes, so there are definitely people who don't take it seriously, but I
One
think,
thing I do always like to kind of point out is most of our kids are not using
Mhm.
drugs, alcohol, vaping, and most of our kids are not. And so I do want to highlight that. And that's what I do try to work with our RISE team on. It's just like, it was 17% of kids drink. Like, that's a small percentage if you think about our whole population here. And because they hear about it or they see it on social media, they just think it's
like,
everybody is doing it. And so I always like to really kind of try to shift their thinking, and most people are not. So if you want to be with
Erin, excuse me, can you just talk about what RISE is? Because you've mentioned it twice.
Okay, so RISE is our Reach to Inspire Substance-Free Environments. It's our student-led group that works on preventing drug and alcohol use. But we're actually broadening our scope on launching some healthy relationships and some of the risk and protective factors. We're going to focus on some of those areas and not just drugs and alcohol.
how many kids do you have in the group?
15.
Nice.
So any other questions or thoughts or ideas?
How long does it take to get the new data from this year?
Forever.
It'll probably, it's usually 10 to 12 months.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Okay.
The 2021 came out, I think, in November of 2022. So,
And that survey was given in October of 21, right?
Yeah.
Typically it's done this time of year, but because of the pandemic, they did the October. So, yeah.
And that's when kids just came back to the classroom.
Right.
Yes, so there's a lot of interesting sort of, like, maybe it won't change anything, maybe the nuances won't be any different, but it'll be interesting to see as they've been in school, how that feels.
Thank you very much. This was a
Oh, we have one more slide.
One more slide?
Yeah.
Sue and I were brainstorming like all of the things that we have in place in our district that really support students and try to address a lot of these health concerns. And so just from our brains, this is what's going on. We have just a lot of things that have been put into place to tackle some of these really tough issues. So thank you for your support on all these things.
Right. I want to end on a positive.
Yeah,
We are doing
A
stuff.
lot of good stuff.
Yeah.
a lot of
really hard
lot
work.
of programs.
Oh, yeah, we've a lot. Yep. All right. Thank you, Erin.
You.
And Echo, I apologize. I skipped right over you, but
That's okay.
if you could give us our student update, that would be great.
So the National Honor Society, the tree that's in the courtyard. Our original plan was to do it this coming weekend, but it's. So that's gonna be my February break and it's dead. So that's why we're doing it. And also the plan is to like put some tables out there so that it can be more accessible. And Student Council is planning a Spirit Week for next week. Students have been attending sports games, meets, showing support for their peers. The Spanish National Honor Society had a field trip to watch a play production today. I'm not really sure. And then Project Search had a session at UNH yesterday evening regarding mental health and resilience.
That's going on.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I guess next on our list is our snow day update.
Sure. So we have used up 4 snow days. And we're going to try to get a waiver for the day that we had, that was more of the power day. So we're looking at that, but also in our superintendent's meeting that we went to last week, there was some discussion about how the state is going to allow some other creative ways to kind of make up some of the days. So one option that we're going to explore is you can take some of your release days, we have late start, early release, and you can just have students continue on that day instead of doing some professional development, and you can accumulate that to equal a day of school. So that could help us with that. So we're nearing our 5. We typically just have the, 5 in our, makeup of the calendar. And then after that, it gets a little, long. So we're working on that. When we talked on Friday, we also talked about, the hot weather too, where school districts are starting to, increase their, letting students out early or calling a hot, a weather day
Mhm.
in the spring or even in the fall.
Mhm.
So we're talking a little bit about that as well. So, we're just trying to keep that balance of, snow days and how we can, try to, work through some of them so that we don't have to go to school till July 1st. But this week was a good week. And, other than being cold tomorrow, and our buses are all prepped and they're plugged in and they have, fluid in for the diesel so that doesn't freeze and, we're good.
Ready to go.
Right now. So that's our update on that. We'll keep you posted, because if we do need to take away some of the professional development or the late start, early release, the board needs to reapprove a calendar, which needs to go to the state, so that can be approved at the state level. So we will certainly, keep updated on this and how we're doing. But our first step will be to ask about the electricity, the day that we had the power.
Sure.
Yeah, so that will be our first step.
Great. Thank you.
Sure.
Follow-up questions on that. With, I was thinking you were gonna say something different for that, actually. With the email that had gone out about packets for little kids and other alternatives for big kids, does that mean we figured out the whole, we can have remote snow days now?
No, that, and in that letter that we sent, it said this doesn't make up a day. It's just keeping students engaged.
So Old Orchard
Mhm.
did a remote day.
Yes.
No,
So there,
watching the news, I was like, right down that on the
Yes.
city right now.
Yeah, there's a couple that are.
Yeah.
So do we know how they're doing it?
so they're a much smaller district.
Okay.
And they are trying to provide food. So the big deal about this is that in order to take a day and count it as a remote day, you have to feed your kids. And so it's just not that simple to be able to send home food ahead of time if you're not really sure what the dealio is gonna be. And if we choose to take the day without providing food, it's a pretty big financial hit to the district, honestly, because we will not be reimbursed for the food that gets sent home or for the time and work. So it's a tough one.
And last year we were able to have shelf-stable food, and we can't this year. So that's. an
According to the
added-
state, it's not according to us, it's according
Right,
to the state.
right.
Yeah.
Or
There's
the
a lot of new
federal.
parameters.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we would like to be able to do that.
I saw that and then I saw this, I was like, oh, we
Right.
figured out a way.
Yeah, no.
We just more wanted, there was a need to just make sure that we were just keeping some of that literacy and math different activities going.
So, number 7, the strategic plan update.
Right. So everybody was here, pretty much. I think Lynn wasn't here, but that's okay, and Echo. I just actually sent an email out to that group because it took me that long to get everything just organized in my brain. We had a great day on Saturday, 4 hours and it flew kind of by. I think everybody felt pretty
Yeah.
good about the productivity. Of the group, there were 16 or 17 people who decided as asked to stay on board, not counting our board members and the administrative team folks that want to be there. So I'm going to figure that out. We'll figure out the numbers. But I don't want to say no to anybody who wants to do it because it's really good information. Let me look really quickly at the email so that I can be clear about, we focused on, we came up with a variety of strategies in terms of looking at the focus areas that were currently in place And then I looked at all of the documents that, you guys created for us. And what I see, and I'm going to hone it down a little bit more carefully, but what I see as themes are safety for both the physical facility, but also mental health and well-being, that whole measure across the board, social, emotional, communication across all areas to improve community buy-in, et cetera. Community engagement, which communication is a part of that, but this is a focus on the whole piece about getting our community being part of our, being our partners, community partners. Quality resources, so that was being able to hire and compensate and keep excellent staff in all areas, as well as provide students and family with a multitude of resources to support their needs. And pathways to success and achievement, which is really the primary educational focus that we had as part of that. We're going to define those a little more clearly as we move forward in the next several months. And we basically set it up to that we're going to meet, have 4 working meetings, March 2nd, prior to the board meeting, 5 to 7, April 6th, May 4th, and June 1st. So those are all the first Thursday of the month prior to the board meetings, 5 to 7. That's drags your day out longer, but at least we can remember that it's that day. And my thought process is that we'll set up a potential unveiling of the draft strategic plan for the Saturday group, whoever wants to come back, on the June 15th board meeting, like prior to the board meeting. And we'll look at that and see if we need more time or not based on what we do. But let that original group have the first blush look at it as a whole, and then they can help pick it apart a little bit more. For real presentation, I would think to the board sometime, maybe in our July meeting is what I'm thinking for that way. The group that was here was very positive. We did note that we didn't have as much diversity in our groups as we would like based on the district as a whole. We had a very proactive group who was very pro-school. So we need to work on some voices that are a little more concerned about our schools in terms of bringing everybody to the table. So that's some of the charges I think that we're going to be working on in that meeting in March, is to talk about let's bring some of those other opinions to the table so that we make sure that we're addressing other concerns that we might have in the school district. So I think it was a positive day in general, and I'm hopeful that we can get it wrapped up in this timeline. I'm hopeful anyways. Anybody have thoughts from, you guys were here, so what did you think?
Excuse me. Just after seeing Aaron's presentation and knowing how much that impacted, I think so much of what we talked about, is that going to be shared with the group that's going on as far as
This particular presentation? Yeah, sure. We will definitely share that. Yep.
That was
Yep.
incredibly informative.
Yeah, it
One
totally
line of what we discussed.
underscores, I think everybody has this general sense that things are hard, but this is data that provides that. Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very impactful.
I'll just say that I had fun. Like,
yay.
I mean, it was work,
Yeah.
but it was it just felt really good walking out of here, having those conversations and yeah.
We had good feedback from the groups that were here, that they felt like it was meaningful and that it moved quickly. And we were 4 hours on a Saturday. Everybody's like, oh my Lord, but it worked out and everybody was positive. We met with James Bellissimo, who is the town manager for Berwick. He came in to chat with us because he was part of the group on Saturday. He came just to talk about, the finances of the world. And he said he was pretty excited about the conversations that were happening around the table. So that was nice. Yeah, it was good.
There was a lot of care in the room. It felt like everybody there felt like they really cared about what was going to happen to our young people. And that was really,
Yeah.
Felt very productive, like got a lot done in that amount of time, I thought.
Good.
nicely done, well
Thanks.
organized.
Thanks.
No.
Okay.
Okay, so budget update.
Okay, so really quickly, I know this, we talked a little bit about this at the strategic planning meeting, but we are getting a we're getting $1.4 million less in subsidy than we did last year. So that's going to impact our budget process. That's partly why we met with James earlier this week, just to talk about the valuation process, as well as the fact that our numbers have gone down a little bit in some of our areas. And he's really he's taking it and looking at it, the valuation, because what's interesting is, like, when he heard when us on Saturday talk about the valuation, he's like, our valuation didn't go up, like, how did that happen? So just the Department of Ed uses kind of different numbers for
Yes.
valuation than maybe what is actually happening in the towns. So there's some of that discrepancy that's going on. And we do have less students attending this year. So that did give us quite a big hit. So we are working with our administrators, just talking more about we haven't even put the first draft budget together. We're in those stages, those end stages of getting that organized, because every cost center, principal, school, facilities, nutrition, all of those areas have provided the budget, but we have to take it and put it all into the district budget. So as we're going through that process, we're going to look at that 1.4 million. What can we do? Because that's, we've got other things that are going up, like electricity, and, so there's just a lot of creative thinking that we're going to have to continue to do to get to where we're going to need to be. So we just wanted to put that out, just so you have that information. We will be reaching out to Lebanon and North Berwick to get a time to go in and just have an initial conversation, similar to the conversation that we had with James earlier this week, just as a pre-budget discussion with them. So that's
good.
Yeah, that's our update on that.
Be interesting to hear what Lebanon and North Berwick have to say.
How much do we usually get? Like, how much of a hit is, obviously $1.4 million sounds like a huge amount, but like.
It was, hold on, I can if you give me a minute, I will find the answer to that question, because it's a decent percentage. We get, well, last year we had a little over 20 million. So 1.4 million down is a good chunk, 5%-ish. Is that what it is? So, yeah, so it's a pretty big hit.
It's one of the bigger hits in the state.
Yep.
Okay. So now we're going to do a second reading of our student representation to the board policy.
I have put in red font the changes that we've made based on the conversation from the last meeting. I'm sorry, it's a little blurry. So we added the word overview just to follow or fall in line with the other, excuse me, areas. We added the section on selection, just to firm that up a bit. And what I did was I looked at other policies that just have appointments in general, and it talked about, like, we could list all the procedures right here, but it makes sense to have not that in the policy.
Yeah.
Just have a policy and then a procedure for how we're going to do that, because it started to get a little long, like the principal can do this, an advisor can do this. So I think we can come up, like the policy committee could come up with those procedures. But in here, it just says we'll utilize the procedures that we've developed. So there's that big piece. And then there was some discussion about, do we have this as a credit? Like, can you earn a credit? Can you have community service? How can appointment to the board and the attendance at the board meeting, how can that impact your school or your classes? So I had a good conversation with AJ Dufort, and we talked about the fact that if it was offered as a credit, that really is limiting access and it's not as equitable as it could be because we are asking for up to two reps.
Mhm.
And he felt much more comfortable just with the conversation about this is absolutely like community service,
Mhm.
because there's a wide variety of other areas that students can use. So that's why we hit community service versus credit.
Why does this say committee in a couple places where it should say school board?
We can change that.
Because that's
Mhm.
very confusing.
Sure.
We are not a school
Yeah.
committee, we are the board of directors.
That was my question in the selection section.
Yes.
That's the committee that's
Yep.
forwarded. Okay. No, I think this looks great.
And then we did change shall to is invited because I think that was the other part of the conversation, as was appropriate business and workshop meetings. So we'll just fix the committee to board in those couple places.
Once we approve this, if we keep the community service hours part, if there are existing student reps, do they get backlogged for their hours for community service?
Echo, have you already completed your community service?
Does it help you to have more, or you just have to do like for resume?
You could stand up at graduation.
Yeah, I mean,
How many hours do you have already?
50.
So yes, we can talk through that. Mhm.
Needed or
Sure. Okay.
you've been here.
Mhm.
We're gonna do it. I don't want you to be punished from it.
So we can approve now and we can make those changes, or we can just bring it back for the final approval next time.
Thoughts on that, ladies?
I think it looks good.
Okay.
All these committees are changed.
Victoria?
I was thinking that possibly bringing it back to the next meeting, especially since we don't have more board members here today to see this, to give their comments on it. Plus, I do have a concern. I can't open it on my computer right now. Robert's trying to help me, but so I can't see it. My concern is hearing from people of the town that, and not just my town, but other towns too in our district, that it might be something that might be misconstrued if she's raising her hand during a vote that she's allowed to, and she hears from community members. That is a huge concern for me, because we all know what has happened in the past can be taken outside of this. So that's one of my biggest concerns.
I'm not sure I understand what you mean about,
Are you worried about somebody harassing Echo or the student
Or
rep?
even approaching her or whatever. It's just one of those things because they're going to see her hand go up once in a while. And again, I just think we need to make it very, very clear about the parameters around her vote, and or just make it. I mean, I'm just hesitant because I know that board members have had issues with this in the past. Thank you, Robert. Robert just fixed it. And it concerns me because I know there has been harassment and several incidences that have been brought up. And like I said, her hand, it will be raised and people will see that and may misconstrue what the parameters are around her vote. Whereas the rest of us are elected officials, it's also a question of that too. So.
I think that's a great question, but I think if we also make it clear to student reps, like you can, like, please feel free to abstain about anything you feel uncomfortable about. And then would that mitigate some of that?
I'm not sure because anything that they raise their hand about, we've all gotten feedback on things that we have voted on. To see their hands up is going to, I know people are going to think, oh, they voted this way on that and I know we don't have a lot of public audience there at the meetings, and even maybe not even watching them, but if it gets around that way, I just don't want to see that happening to our students.
Mm.
Because that's not a safe situation,
Right, right.
even at the school.
So maybe we can have some conversations with other districts that are utilizing
Mhm.
Mhm.
student board reps, because this isn't unusual. I mean,
Right.
I
But
get,
no,
I see that. Yep.
Yeah, and that's just my concern. That's why I would like to wait a little bit longer, maybe to get some of that feedback as well, so that either during our just to make it clear of what's going on there and what the students are doing, because there'll be students in the future who will also be doing this, and we want to make sure to keep everyone safe. We want to keep Echo safe and anybody else that has anything like that. We don't want them being held responsible for things that adults are really doing, or you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay.
Echo, have you had any instances where you've been approached negatively? Okay.
Well, she hasn't really had a vote yet either.
Mm.
Anything come up that if you could have voted, that you would have felt uncomfortable about, or something that you would have, like, would you have been okay choosing to abstain?
Probably not.
Or another thought too is, do we, especially recordings, like you can't, I'm sure people probably can't see my name tag. So is that something that, like, a new habit that at the beginning of the meeting, we go around the table and like say who we are, and then say, and our student rep or reps, and introduce them and say, please note if you see them voting, like their vote is not counted towards the total, and they also like may choose to abstain, you know.
My only concern about reiterating, I guess, stating that is that I want Echo to feel like it matters.
Mhm.
So you say,
And it
hey,
does.
but yeah,
It
because it
does.
matters, does. So like, yeah, your vote doesn't count. I mean, I get it, but I guess I don't know. I don't want to I don't want
Yeah.
to say that every
We're
single
supposed
meeting
to,
here.
like, we like
Yeah.
take it into consideration, and we really value the feedback of the student vote,
Yeah.
Right.
not recorded.
Because it is a valuable thing, but we also do, like I said, we want to let everyone know what the parameters are of that as well, so that they do know these are students, and that's not necessarily something that they should be I don't know how to say what I'm about to say. I mean, it does matter that they're there. It does matter that we hear students, the student body concerns and all that's going on with them. And I think that's great. Again, I just don't want to see a dangerous situation or a misconstrued, understood, uh, something happen because somebody misconstrued something that was happening here.
Do you think it would help, Victoria, if we had maybe a paragraph that Elva would read at the end of the public input statement that said something to the effect that the board has included up to 2 high school representatives for the school board, and go into just a sentence or two about what the purpose is?
It might, just so that at the beginning of every meeting, it is made clear. Again, I don't want to diminish the fact that it is important, but I just want to cover that situation. I want everybody to be safe. I want everybody to understand what's happening in front of them if they are watching through the television and or at the meetings, because even being there, you see her hand go up at a vote, somebody's going to have questions.
So even if we said, take 2 sentences out of this overview, the purpose of these representatives is to provide the school board with student perspectives on board policy and bring policy information back to the student body. Student representative votes are advisory to the board. The votes of student representatives, well, we don't even have to go that far. Student representative votes are advisory to the board, period.
Well, that's why I thought maybe another week to think about it, look at it,
Yeah.
and let the other board members also chime in on this as well, in case
Okay.
they have any concerns. But like I said, community members are already noticing it.
Good.
And
I'm excited that they're
I'm
paying
glad that
attention.
they are.
Paying attention, this is
But
good.
I'm
great.
just bringing the concern to you guys so that
No,
you know that
it's-
it's out there.
That's
Hmm.
fine.
Thank you.
Because there was one other thing about it not being a elected official.
Oh, interesting.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's where I am. I'm not trying to actually. No, my camera was not working. Sorry, so you guys can't see my face. There. Okay. Yeah. So I just want to put out those concerns that are out there in the community and let you guys know that that's out there. And I'm glad people are paying attention.
Yeah,
But, yeah. Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
So we will table this until our next
Mhm.
meeting, and hopefully we'll have Travis and Nancy and Denise with us next week.
Okay.
And,
And we will contact some schools
Yeah.
that have this policy or similar
okay,
and just talk about those concerns and see how that is addressed.
Got it.
Echo, like, if anyone ever did make you feel uncomfortable, do you know who to go to and what to do and like, how to, okay. I think that's an important.
Speed dial, right?
Yes.
Take care of you.
911, Sue and Audra.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. I think it's.
Yeah, it's a valid
very
concern.
reasonable
Yeah, it's a
Thing to
valid
think about.
Okay, an employment update.
We do have some employment updates. This is hot off the press. So we have Amanda Foote. We are nominating Amanda Foote to you this evening for approval for the life skills position in Lebanon. That position, we approved a couple weeks ago the resignation of a teacher in that program. So this is filling that space. So Amanda comes with her application. She is currently working at, let me get it. I have everything. I'm going to go in order here. So she has her associate's degree from Essex Community College in Deaf Studies. She has a bachelor's degree from Southern New Hampshire University in Human Services. She's currently at eMark as a life skills instructor. So she would be just translating those skills, that skill set. She's working with adults. So it would be just translating those skills over to our elementary school at Hanston School. So we are bringing her forward for nomination and approval tonight.
I make a motion, we accept Amanda Foote for the life skills in Lebanon.
Second. All those in favor?
And I guess wait until we get this all hammered out, I think is right. You can let us know what you think.
Thank you. All right, that's our only employment update.
Okay, we like it in the plus column.
Yeah, exactly. Us too.
Does any board member have any other topics they'd like to discuss?
I just had a random question. The budget meeting in May, last year it was the Thursday of a holiday weekend. This year it's the Thursday of a holiday weekend. Is that set in stone or is there any way to change that? Because I remember last year's comment was low attendance.
Right.
I know I just booked a camping trip, so I will not be here for this year.
Right.
I was looking at the calendar, I was like, oh, shoot.
Okay,
So I didn't-
Memorial Day
We-
weekend?
we do have to have it
Thursday
a
before Memorial Day.
certain
It has to-
amount
it's-
of days before the vote.
Okay.
And so we're kind of locked with that.
Is it worth doing it, like, a day or two sooner? Like, I just know that was a comment last year and I know I was busy that night, that's why I'm like,
Yeah, we can certainly check that date, but we have to have it within, like I said, within a certain period of time before the,
there's so many.
So we
people
will-
leave on
can check on that. Mhm.
days for things for a long
Okay.
time.
I think we have school on Friday though. Shouldn't they be here?
My kids are not joining me until Friday night. All the two in school anyway. Most likely.
So you meaning you're not going to be able to be here? for that? Okay, because that is something that we really need our board members present
Yeah,
for.
yeah.
Because it's a statement for the community too,
Yeah.
so.
Well, that's what I thought, and I was like, oh, I know it could be the last year when I wasn't here on here yet, but
Mhm.
it's not, can't go this year. Sure.
Okay. We'll just double check that time frame of when
Yeah.
we need to have.
Yeah, we'll check in with
Yeah.
Denise.
Even if we moved it to that Wednesday, would that be?
It may be. Well,
If it
well,
falls in
yeah,
that
if
time.
it falls in that
Something
time.
about the numbers, like it's
Right.
a numbers game
Yeah.
in terms of
Yeah.
that. We'll figure it out.
Okay.
Thanks for that. I don't go last year. Okay.
Any other?
I do have one more. Sorry
Okay.
about that. We have
No.
a donation to the backpack program for $901 from Kim Talon. This is kind of an annual event. She decorates, the Christmas tree light display is what she does. And it's by donation. You drive by and you donate. So that is how much she
She's
has
the Lebanon
raised. The Lebanon.
Light
Fund.
lady, yeah, they do a great job. They also they do donations of money, but they also do, cans and stuff like that, that they donate to the food pantry.
Oh,
So,
that's
yeah, it's really good.
What's her name again? I'll send her a thank you
Kimberly
note.
Talon. She and her husband do it.
Okay.
And Kim is actually, an employee of ours as well.
Okay.
Yeah, she's.
So we need a motion,
Yeah, I make a motion to accept the backpack donation of how much?
900.
$900.
Do you have a second? All those in favor? And the motion's passed. Doesn't appear, unless Boo has something to say, we don't have public input.
Got anything to say? He's got his Lebanon owl. I like that.
Okay, so now to go into executive session, do we go out of,
So we will go into executive session, but we'll let the public know that we will no longer be doing any public stuff. So once we leave here, we will adjourn.
Okay.
So. Thank you, Echo.
what's he say?
So do we have to make a motion?
Yes.
We need somebody to make a
Make a
motion.
motion. We do need a motion.
I make a motion to go into executive session pursuant to 1 MRSA 4056A evaluation of employee.
Have a second?
Thank you.
All those in favor? And the motion is passed.
I'm going to stop recording.